Let's bring in Anvar Sarygulov, who is head of research at the think tank Bright Blue, a liberal conservative think tank. Thanks for joining us here on LBC News. Your reaction to those ministerial resignations tonight?
Thank you for having me. Well, I think what's been quite interesting is just how it all was going so slowly and then so quickly all at once. We've seen the government having problems coming at the no confidence vote a couple of weeks ago, and now we seem to have hit another point where there's actually been resignations coming through.
And what do you think of the way that Downing Street and Boris Johnson and the government has been dealing with just being straight with what happened and what Boris Johnson knew about Chris Pincher?
Well, I think the role of trust sometimes doesn't get discussed enough, both in politics and in policy. I mean, the matter of fact is that to deliver on policy and to deliver on promises that the government has, there needs to be a certain buying of trust from the MPs, from the public. And I think this has been I don't think enough vote has been really felt about that at this point, about the role of trust.
The Conservative Party has seen its electoral fortunes go downhill quite a bit in recent weeks and months. Obviously, we've seen quite a few by-election defeats, and the Conservatives being consistently behind in the polls now. Do you think that this is potentially doing lasting damage to the Conservative Party as a brand?
Well, I think what fundamentally matters to voters in the long term is what's actually it's causing issue them today, and that is right now primarily around cost of living. And I think what we're seeing here is that the cost of living action, there has been some taking, but because of this political maneuvering, there isn't really enough focus on the policy side of things, which is what is going to ultimately matter.
What do you think is going to happen now that we've had these ministerial resignations? Under normal circumstances, a prime ministerial resignation would follow.
Yes, I think in the usual convention, we would usually see the Prime Minister resign. But I mean, we would also, under usual convention, see Prime Minister resign after the no confidence vote. The no confidence vote that was held like Thatcher did, and we didn't see that. So I'm not sure convention will apply, but I think things can move very quickly now.
And I mean, you obviously from Bright Blue, this liberal conservative think tank. What do you think of the positioning of the Conservative Party that it has been under Boris Johnson? I mean, it has moved somewhat to the right, hasn't it?
I think it's a complicated picture, because if you think about, I think there's some cultural stuff where, yes, it has. But then if you think about what has happened during the pandemic and what has happened with the cost of living payments recently, we've actually seen government that's quite open to spending money at points, and we're also seeing some quite good action on the net zero agenda. So I think it's much more complicated than that.
Do you have a view on what you would like to see happen now?
I mean, I think we really deal with policies, not personalities. I mean, I think we are very eager to see a much greater focus on policy, whether it is under the current government or the next Conservative government. I think we just want to see much more emphasis on forward-thinking, creative policy to deal with cost of living, to deal with the net zero.